Hi again. In my last post, I was talking about my journey into the NLP field, where I got started, how I think about it, the value of it for me through my own experiences. But I want to get a little deeper into how we think about things in NLP and how I think about them in particular. So I want to talk about this whole idea of the unconscious mind, which sounds very mysterious whenever you say it. But I want to take you back. When I was in graduate school, there was this whole argument going on, and there probably still is. And I even had a professor who said social workers don't deal with unconscious processes. And even back then, I thought, that's ridiculous. What is the matter with this person? How can we not? If you're trying to help somebody, if you're counseling them, if you're coaching them, if you're talking with a friend, if you're trying to influence them, if you're teaching a child, of course we're influencing their unconscious mind. Of course we're dealing with unconscious processes, whatever that means. We're dealing with the whole person, conscious and unconscious, and people can't really make changes unless we're dealing with all parts of them. So I always remember the different definitions people had as well. Some people said, well, what you're conscious is what you're aware of, and the unconscious parts are simply the parts you're not aware of. So anytime we take something and make it conscious from the unconscious, it's no longer in the unconscious, it's now in the conscious mind. And all this is just a way of talking about it. So I have a friend named Steve Gilligan, who's probably the best hypnotist in the world, certainly one of them. And we saw him years ago at what's called a Milton Erickson International Conference. Milton Erickson was considered the father of modern hypnosis, maybe the greatest psychiatrist that ever lived. Clearly one of them, and an amazing person. And he modernized a lot of the ways that we do things. And a lot of NLP came from his thinking, his ideas, and some of his techniques, especially his use of language, which is just astonishing. And Steve began a presentation. Now remember, everybody there is a trained clinical hypnotist, and they all have at least master's degrees in one of the counseling fields. They're psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, other kinds of professionals in the area, and most of them are very experienced. And Stephen started off saying, I want to dispel a myth. It's the myth of the unconscious. And everybody kind of chuckled because we've all been having these conversations for years. You can't be in the field without talking around what it means to have an unconscious mind and a conscious mind, or whatever that really means. I mean, there are people who don't even believe that hypnosis exists. They think that it's just a way of gathering those conscious and unconscious processes together. And I won't argue, because there's a lot of logic to that. Because if you think about it, we have a brain here. Do we really have two separate minds? Probably not. What we really have are different ways we're using our neurology, our brains. And this, you don't have to be a counselor or a coach or any kind of a professional to understand that. We have a lot of stuff going on in our minds that we can't be aware of all of it at the same time. It's not even humanly possible. There's just too much going on. So a lot of people think about this in terms of an unconscious mind because it's convenient. And it seems to be intuitively, it feels like that. For example, when we're dreaming at night, we can go into a whole different world. We can even go into a whole bunch of different worlds, totally alternate realities, and they seem real to us. And we wake up and we go, whoa, where'd that come from? That was strange. And it's not like some other mind came up with it. We can even remember some of the parts of our dreams sometimes. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. So what does that mean? Well, it means our brain was doing something different. I mean, Sigmund Freud himself, a long time ago, said, dreams are the royal road to the unconscious, because he knew when people are dreaming at night, they're not censoring, they're not operating in the same way, they're not deciding what's true or what's not true. And what we call the unconscious mind doesn't do that. It just lets things go wild. And he was right about that. A lot of the things he came up with about dreams and what they mean and how they work was quite honestly pretty goofy. It made sense at the time to him in his world, But we know a lot more now. We're talking 150 years later. Of course, we know more. If we didn't, there'd be something desperately wrong with us. So people sense that they do have something different, another part of their brain, another mind in there that's out of reach. They don't really, they just don't know how to get to it. And that's some of what we do. And that's what NLP is about. It's what a lot of therapies are about, really. If you think about it, all of this is just a way of talking about things we probably just don't understand very well. And when you're dreaming at night, by definition, you're unconscious because you're asleep. That's the way it works. So, of course, calling it the unconscious mind makes a lot of sense. And even though we know neurologically and from a logical scientific point of view that there aren't two separate brains, sometimes thinking about it that way can be useful. So I don't argue one way or the other. I just remind people this is just our way of talking about it. And let's use the most useful metaphor we can, because that's really what we're talking about. We're talking around things we just don't understand very well. So naturally, we do it metaphorically. So, what are the techniques that we use in NLP? What are they for? Well, they're to help us gather that information. So, when you're sleeping at night, obviously you're in a different state of consciousness. This is one of the things that changes literally what we are conscious of. Your state of consciousness changes what you're conscious of and what access you have to different kinds of memories, different kinds of information that are built into your brain. So when you change your state of consciousness, you're aware of different things on the inside. It's one of those reasons why, if you're really angry at somebody, you remember all the other times they did something that really got under your skin, right? Or pissed you off. And when we're really happy with somebody, we remember the happy times we spent with them. It doesn't mean those pieces of information don't exist unless we're in those states of mind. It just means we have easier access to them then. So, what are the techniques for? The techniques of hypnosis, NLP, anything that's about change are about helping people gather the information they need to do something useful. And the NLP techniques are very specific about that. So, if we have very specific goals or outcomes, we can change our state of consciousness, our state of mind in a way where we'll have access to the information that we need. When we have that access, we can organize or sequence that information in such a way that leads us to the outcome or the goal specifically. And that's the point. We want to be as specific as we can. So we have all kinds of processes for gathering this information, for helping people manage their states of mind, for asking the kinds of questions that allow people to make that unconscious information conscious so that they can use it. That's the point. It's making it useful. Not necessarily right, not necessarily correct neurologically. If you think about it, the way that things are going now, everything that we now know is probably going to look stupid 100 years from now, too, or 150 years. Just like some of the things that we look at for Freud 150 years ago that he came up with looks kind of goofy. Some of it still makes some sense, but some of it makes no sense at all. 150 years ago, a lot of the stuff that we're doing now isn't going to make a lot of sense either. But for now, we have good technology. We've got procedures and processes that work, that help people gather that information that previously was unconscious, put it together, blend it with what they do know, sequence it, manage it in such a way so that they can change in whatever direction they need to get what they need. And once again, that's the point. I'll have a lot more to say about all this in the future. And for now, thanks for watching and listening.